In this session, I'm going to talk about the shift that this industry requires in order to meet the challenges that we have to date, and it'll only get worse in the future in terms of the growth that the industry is talking about. So in this session, I'm going to focus on from moving from a conventional workforce provision model to more work scope model. And I'll go through in terms of setting the scene, what are the numbers we're talking about when we look at the current status of the industry, where we're heading, and what are the gaps that currently we're facing across the board, and what shift that I referred to earlier that we at OEG believe that we all need to work together and play our part to address this problem. So on this slide you see data from studies published by OEG and Renewable UK, whereby the current size of the workforce that we're sitting at is around 55,000 personnel, and the forecast by 2030 is 112,000, which is a huge amount of growth when we look at where we are currently at and the timeline that we're talking about. So this execution gap that I put on the screen here, how do we address that? Because scaling at this scale required aligned training, clear competencies framework, and operational models to deliver both offshore and onshore. And if I zoom in and sort of limit it to the electrical personnel, who are of course a big proportion and a part of this execution gap, the industry is facing a lot of challenges where we don't have enough competent and trained workforce that we all can rely upon and get the work done. So on this screen is sort of a snapshot of our legacy model that I call it, and the one that I believe and we believe is breaking. So we have the conventional model, and still heavily to date is in forces. We have sourcing where the companies hire crews and the workforce based on the job they're required to carry out. When we provide these resources to organizations, our customers and partners, straight away we feel we see a bottleneck where often they have to do a client-specific training. This creates a bottleneck, and it delays the execution process from placing these people at the projects from actually benefiting from them. On top of that, we have mobilization friction, where the bespoke internal training that I referred to, often we get very limited training slots for these people to get this additional training required for them to do work or testing for the job that they're hired to do at first place. And the last one is reauthorization. Because we don't have a aligned governance model, very often the people have to go through additional authorization process, which again creates time delays and inefficiencies when we look at the overall picture. When we take a step back and look at ourselves in terms of OEG capabilities, the training friction that I mentioned, we have the capability that we have a training center where we are offering GWO trainings and other technical training, so to speak. So therefore we have the capability and competencies to be able to plug in the gap and work with our partners to address that friction that I referred in the last slide. But it still doesn't take away that fact that it reduces the efficiencies in terms of deploying this personnel and getting the most out of it. So whilst we have the capability to address the training problem, it still doesn't address and solve the overarching problem that we have in the industry. So all that said, we propose and we strongly believe that we need a shift in terms of how we have been approaching and dealing with the provision of those skilled electrical personnel in the industry. So the model that we propose and we strongly believe in is that we can partner with the organization, with the companies, to look at holistic overall scope of work rather than solely looking at the minute workforce provision point of view. So starting on the top left is we discuss and understand the client requirements in terms of what is the scope of work that we need to do, and understand that the technicalities of that work, both from training point of view, from a competence point of view, and from safe system of work point of view. And this is where we move towards the assess and govern bucket there, whereby from our experience we select the appropriate safe system of work required to do that job safely and efficiently, and we determine and define the competencies required to do that job safely and properly. We manage the full execution of the task from start to finish, as I mentioned, right from the sourcing of the crews, from the training, from safe system of work, and getting the job done to the point where we return the asset back to our clients based on the scope that we defined right at the start. So this paradigm shift is completely moving away from a model that has worked very well in the past, in fairness, and is still heavily being used to date as well. But the amount of growth that I mentioned right at the start, 112,000 technicians or people by 2030, we need to move away from the legacy model to a model such as on the screen that I propose. We also have to keep in mind that that shift is also very important to keep in mind that the industry has evolved and advanced in comparison with the governance and the model that we have been operating and working under. We have technological advancement within the turbines nowadays, whereby the technical and the safety principles are very much embedded in terms of safety by design principle. We have state-of-the-art interlocking mechanism within the turbine where the possibility of technicians doing things wrong is effectively mitigated by design. So, as I mentioned, the technological advancements, so to speak, have outpaced effectively in terms of the crewing, the model that we have been working under for quite some time. And I'll touch base on the technological advancement on the turbine part, where we could utilize safe system of work such as wind turbine system safety rules that have been recently launched by Safety On and G+, whereby worker testing on high voltage system and components at the turbine level can be done by this newly released safe system of work, as compared to the conventional HV safe system of work that we have been using and still to date, which is essentially designed for more complex multi-feed arrangement. It's not about lowering standard, it's purely about looking at what is best in terms of the governance that we apply for the work, the task at hand, and how do we utilize that model in order to train, develop workforce within the industry, which I'll touch base on the next slide. So with the model that we propose, and I mentioned about wind turbine system safety rules earlier, by looking at it with a different lens that I just mentioned, this will enable us to solve two problems. One is the immediate requirement and the needs of the industry in terms of the workforce, and also building a pipeline, a pathway for the technicians to get to the level which I put right at the top as the SAP. So we utilize models such as wind turbine safety rules and wind turbine system safety rules to do the more routine, less complex work at the turbine level, utilizing what they call as authorized technician level 1 and level 2, and then enable the industry and the people to have that opportunities to get themselves exposed to the task at the turbine level, and have the experience and competence to get to the senior authorized person. And this will allow us to secure and keep those very limited resources that we have currently for the complex, difficult tasks that we have in the industry. Because currently we are utilizing those limited resources for blanketly across the whole high voltage work. We have a framework available now where we can utilize a different model for routine HV tasks at the turbine level. So with this framework at OEG, we have the experience and mechanism available to support the application of the wind turbine safety rules, the wind turbine system safety rules, and the more conventional electrical and mechanical safety roles. Bringing all it together is OEG is a solution provider here where we have the capability to develop people both in-house and externals using our training academy that we have. We have competencies and capability to manage people, select appropriate safe system of work based on the work that is required to be done, and carry out the work utilizing the capability that I mentioned in terms of the training and safe system of work understanding and application. And the last one is that the future of this wind industry, we need to have predictable, efficient and scalable model. We cannot rely on the historical past legacy model to scale up and determine our future. The future requires us to reevaluate ourselves and look at how we can best and efficiently scale up and help each other to address this problem that we have in the industry. This model and the governance will help us to accelerate the delivery. 112,000 people that I mentioned by 2030 we require. This will enable us to less rely on the resources dependency that we have from the model that I mentioned of only providing crews and personnel that we have been and we still currently to date are doing. And really emphasis here again is this is not about lowering the standards, it's about being in control in terms of where we want to head towards and where we want to go. And at OEG, we believe that we are ready to deliver that at scale. Thank you.